Welcome everyone to another Hearts of Iron 4 mod spotlight, and this time we have Après Moi, Déluge. I'm sorry if I thought multiplayer. So let's go on a new game and see what this is about. I'm actually going to get out of Steam so that I don't have any weird stuff. Now, this mod is an alternate history mod. As you can see, there's a bunch of things that aren't normally around, and we will explain them eventually. This is the map, of course, centered on Europe. But as you can see, it's already different in the other areas of the world as well. And the main premise of this alternate history is that essentially Napoleonic France won the Napoleonic Wars. So the Bonaparte dynasty is still in power in France, and there's a bunch of weird stuff happening all over the world. And there is already a quite sort of detailed and well actually written sort of summary of the alternate history on the Paradox forums, which I will link in the description on the post that essentially explains the mod. And so essentially this is a lot like Hearts of Iron 4, except a little bit new because of the obviously alternate history scenario, and just in general really refreshing in some ways. And it reminds me of probably my favorite mod ever for Darkest Hour, Kaiserreich. And if you have played Kaiserreich, you know the kind of feel that these sort of alternate history mods can have, and it's pretty good. Now, jumping into it, I'm actually just going to mostly explain, I'm actually just going to jump in the game right now, and mostly explain the national focus tree, because there's one generic national focus tree that is essentially, has a different idea going for it than the standard one, and you'll see why. And then the actual sort of diplomacy and the diplomacy game plan is sort of more regulated by events, of which there are 44, I believe, either 44 or 46. Let me check. Actually, there's already a good amount, 42, which is quite a lot for a mod this new. And that's great, because these 42 events essentially dictate a few nice sort of happenings that allow the AI to actually do stuff. Now, as you can see in the start, the sort of Germany is divided in three, because essentially in this alternate reality, World War I has ended in 1932, 1932/1933. So essentially there's still a lot of turmoil, and Germany, which was sort of a puppet of France, because still from sort of the 1820s, etc., the sort of French influence in Europe was still strong, was fighting against Poland, the UK, and Hungary. And essentially Poland and Hungary lost, and UK, but France and Germany and Austria, who were the sort of continental powers, as they're called. As you can see, the continental system is the alliance of the French, who were fighting the central powers, aka these guys. They were still very much sort of ravaged by the war, and as you can see, for example, France has the national spirit Great War Horrors, which is essentially the legacy of the Great War in this sort of scenario. Then there's also a lot of weird stuff going on with Russia. There is Ukraine, Belarus, and Baltic states, actual Baltic Union, that are independent. Poland is, of course, much bigger and very powerful in this mod. They've got a lot of divisions starting off, and they build up very quickly. They've got a good industry, so Poland is definitely a player. And let's actually get to the focus trees and the politics, because that's where most of the differences are. As you can see, it's pretty small, but it's pretty good, because it essentially just gives you some small/medium modifiers that also affect the politics that I'll talk about later. And the AI actually has a hidden flag in its sort of programming that tells it, based on sort of the history and the sort of, what the country has for values in the sort of alternate history, what they will pick, because these are essentially mostly just about determining what type of society, in a way, you are building. So you have meritocracy, which increases radical ideology, and I'll explain the ideologies later, versus aristocracy, which increases monarchist, individualism versus corporatism. And then down here you have, for example, secret police, policing by consent, land reform and mineralism, which is, of course, just building bigger sort of landowner type society. And so this is small, of course, and it's generic for everyone, but it is good. It is good because it gives a lot more of a feel of dynamic parties, because you can pick, you're not limited to one. You can pick one from each sort of category. You can, for example, pick meritocracy and corporatism, or aristocracy and corporatism as well. You have sort of mixes of that. And so what that does is it eventually settles the parties on a sort of, there's one major party and then there's one minor party, depending on what you want it to be. In fact, if you do some weird stuff, you can even make it so that there's some sort of balanced party composition in certain states. And that's kind of interesting, because it would also be really nice, in fact, to play multiplayer, I feel like. So it would be very nice to actually make some multiplayer games happen with this kind of system, just to see what happens. And essentially, the ideologies are a lot like the normal game in that there's 3 main ones, but they've also added monarchist, which is one of the more popular sort of added ideologies. And the 3 main ones that are ported from the normal game are radical, which is basically communist, democratic, which is democratic, and ultranationalist, which is fascist. So the normal German Civil War at the start is the fascists over here were actually led by August von Mackensen, who was a German World War I general, very interesting character, versus the monarchy, essentially just the pre-war stuff with the monarchy, which is the Kingdom of Westphalia, against the radicals. So the Socialist Republic, the People's Republic of Germany, which is a pretty interesting setup, and it's actually very fun to play through. I'll actually load into a game later on where I played through as the People's Republic of Germany. They start off with all the navies, whereas, for example, the Teutonic Reich, which is the name of the ultranationalists, start off with tanks. Not exactly sure what Westphalia starts with, but for example, Socialist Germany actually has their own unique generals as well. And there's a lot of unique portraits actually added. For example, if we go to over here to the Socialist Republic of Ukraine, who has actually Nestor Makhno, who is a very, very, very interesting character from our real-life history as its leader. They have a really cool portrait. There's some portraits that feel a little bit out of sort of place. For example, the leader of Belarus is a little bit weird. I mean, he looks like he's from 2002, so I'm not exactly sure what's up with that. Obviously, Russia is still an empire in this sort of scenario, and Finland is their puppet. Then there is the East. The East is also different. There is the Heavenly Kingdom in the south of China, who is ultranationalist, and the sort of radical/democratic. So it says it's Chinese empire. However, it can go really either way comparatively to what happens in the game. Then there's Japan, just the regular Japan. British India is still there, but since this is a much more French world, there is also a French India, and there's also a Portuguese, bigger Portuguese part of India, because of course England has lost some of its colonies in its sort of misfortunes. The Dutch East Indies are the same. Actually, the Dutch are a republic, comparatively to the normal game where they are a kingdom. Obviously, the sort of English alliance, the British alliance, is called the Commonwealth, and not the Allies. They do have sort of what you'd expect, but unfortunately for the British, Canada is very much its own thing, and in general, America is much different. For example, America is a kingdom, but then there's this big thing over here, which is Louisiana, which is essentially where the French royal family in this alternate timeline went to make their own kingdom, instead of trying to eventually restore and eventually fail at restoring the monarchy in France itself. They eventually just ran away over here, and they made this kingdom, which has a few colonies. For example, in the Caribbean over here, they have Haiti. Then Spain still has a lot of colonies, which is interesting. There is a sort of more, I feel like, less fleshed out and simple South America, which is, well, obviously because it's still very new. And there's the Empire of Brazil, it's still around. pretty big Argentina, Rio de la Plata, and the Republic of Gran Colombia. Then the United Republic of Central America, which controls the Panama Canal. Santa Cruz, not exactly sure what this is supposed to be. And the Empire of Mexico. Obviously, since France was stronger in this timeline than Mexico, the Mexican Empire sort of became a more active thing and wasn't overtaken by sort of the Mexican uprising. And then there is the Christian Republic of Deseret, which is obviously sort of the sort of weirdo Mormon stuff. There's actually one weird thing over here that is, I believe, an Easter egg. Let's actually go. Oh god, I don't know which. Is this the right tag? Yes. Is it still the same? Yep. Okay, so the Republicans, who are the communists, have the leader called Mitt Romney, who is... Okay, that's an interesting Easter egg, I think that's what it is. I'd actually noticed it a little bit earlier. Oh, never mind. Failed the tag. Really? Jur is not the tag? Well, never mind. Let's go to France to explain the last part of the mod. Now, as you can see, the orders of battle, as is usual with sort of more total conversion mods, are very important, but they are fairly well fleshed out. The economic side is also pretty much what you'd expect. I mean, a united Germany can do fairly well against France, but there's also a lot more sort of good sort of middle ground powers. For example, Poland and Hungary are very strong. Austria is also very strong, but they have sort of weird territory. It's very hard for them to do much. And then to the last part, which is the events and sort of how playable the AI is. I mean, how much things the AI does. It's actually fairly playable in that the events sort of govern the diplomacy. So if we go to loading the game that I played, oh, it's actually DDR, the tag for Germany. Oh, okay. If you go to actually load the game, I hope that it's actually going to load. Fuck. Yeah, it seems like I was playing with some kind of mod that some kind of mod combination that I can't seem to reproduce, so I can't really load back into the game to actually show you what happened. However, rest assured, I can tell you right away. For example, Great Britain actually decided to attack Ireland because they get an event that gives them claims on it. And eventually they overcame Ireland, and then they decided to ally with Austria when I attacked Austria, because I had essentially united Germany, taken Pomerania, which was given to me by event, and then the Polish declared war on me on their own. I didn't do anything. They just declared war on me because they had claims over here. And then essentially, once I was finished with Poland and I had a couple of allies over here in the east, I attacked Austria, and then Austria and Russia and Croatia joined in a coalition with Britain, who had also Ireland, to attack me, along with Sweden. Essentially, Sweden, Denmark over here is a full sort of Scandinavian Union under Sweden. So all those guys, it's like combined together to attack me, and the only person that was really neutral was France. So essentially, that is what was happening in my playthrough, and that was at like 1941. So not even that further into the game. So rest assured, you can play and the AI will do things. However, as I said, if you can get a few people to play multiplayer in this, I feel like it will be very fun. Now, pretty much done with that. I just wanted to actually let you know that the Ottoman Empire is still around, because I know that there's some people that for some reason extremely like the Ottoman Empire. So I don't know, I'll just slap that in there. So I want to thank you all for watching. I hope that you will enjoy the mod. Links, as always, will be in the description. As always, the credit goes to the modders. I did not make this. And I'll see you soon.